Ladies, what if waiting to be ready is the very thing holding you back? So many women wait for the conditions to be perfect. They want to make sure that everything is, the way that it should be, the quality is top grade and all of that before they move forward and do the things that they need to do. What if this is the actual thing preventing you from getting to where you want? Now, I'm all for excellence. Anyone that knows me knows that I love excellence. I love good quality stuff, and that's a great thing. That's not a bad thing. However, sometimes we can use our need to have a good quality stuff or to, know more about stuff. We can use that as a strategy to prevent us from actually going forward and doing the things that we need to do. And for some women, this might be difficult to hear, but it is true. In my work, I have come to find that sometimes procrastination and waiting for the right conditions and waiting to know more and waiting to have more, to have better quality and more support and all of these other excuses that we tell ourselves, which on the surface might sound great, like good, legit excuses. At the end of the day, they are just that. They're excuses. What if I told you that in order to actually achieve excellence, in order to actually become good at whatever it is you're doing, in order for you to actually get the quality in whatever endeavor you're embarking on, that you need to actually start. You actually need to do something, and that's how you get better. You don't get better by necessarily spending more time talking to people about it and asking questions and all of that. You have to do the training that you need. You need to get the information that you need, but at some point, you do need to actually start. And it's in starting that you start to realize what you can change and how to get better, because we know practice makes perfect. Okay. And I have a lot of stories and experiences about several times when my need for excellence has kind of prevented me from doing stuff at the pace that I should. I remember when I was living in New York, this was about 12 years ago. I was living in New York City. I was doing my Master of Public Health degree at the time at New York University, and I loved it there, right? But during this time, I really wanted to work at the UN. I've always had this dream to work at the United Nations. And as you know, if you're familiar with this organization, it's extremely competitive to get in there, especially to the headquarters, which was right there in New York. We had people applying from all over the world to try to work in New York City. And I wanted to work there. So eventually, I was able to get in there. I was going to school at New York University, which is like not too far from there. It's right there in Manhattan. And so it was a phenomenal experience. But I remember when I got into the UN and I was doing some research work with them, it started to be a thing where I would second guess. Like every time I had a project to work on, I'd be like, I need to make sure that's correct. And I'd spend a lot of time checking and over checking and rechecking and, making sure it's accurate before actually sending out the draft. And so at some point I had to realize that in order to actually know if this draft makes any sense, I do need to send it to my supervisor so that he can look at it and he can say, okay, you need to tweak it this way. Holding it and overlooking at it and checking it and rechecking it and procrastinating only makes you to almost hit the deadline or pass the deadline. And so it's something I had to learn, because no matter how long you sit on it, I can tell you that improvements will still be needed. And didn't I learn that? Okay. And I remember we worked on a publication and I had colleagues from the WHO work on that with colleagues from the CDC. I'm going to try to put the link to my paper. When I post this, I'm going to put the link to that paper because it was the highlight. It was my first publication, by the way, so it meant so much to me. But I remember just working on that project and just really spending a lot of time to make sure that the drafts were perfect and just hesitating before hitting send. And I had to learn from that time that when you do the work, just send it. When you want to do something, just start it. Go ahead and do it. And then from there, you're going to learn what works, what doesn't work. You're going to get corrections. You're going to improve. When you're so concerned about how it's going to look, or I want to make sure that it's perfect and everything looks good and all of that, when you're so worried about that, you're forgetting the monumental thing, which is the message. There's many times that I've posted something that I was reluctant about posting, and people will tell me of how much it meant to them. And that is so rewarding for me. Okay, so sometimes when you have a talent or you have a gift or you have a message, it's not so much about you. You have to step out of it and take that imperfect action, because it'll bless somebody else. Whenever you're using your talent, you are uplifting somebody else. And in a future post, I will talk about talents because that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And I feel like we really need to talk about that. So I'll talk about that in another video. Right now I'm experiencing it because I recently started my business, Joyfully Transcend LLC, and it's really focused on helping women to overcome self-doubt and overcome shame and regret and any other adversities that they have experienced that has resulted in them feeling badly about themselves. So we're going to be doing online courses and one-on-one coaching, as well as many other products and services that we'll be rolling out with this singular aim to help women reinvent their lives, to rewrite their stories, to make sure that they know that the adversities that they've experienced, the failures that they've encountered, do not define the rest of their lives, right? And so in doing this business, though, I hesitated to talk about it because I was like, let me wait until the website is ready. Let me get my logo done first. Let me do this. Let me do that. Oh, the quality of the video is going to be like this. Let me wait until I learn how to do a thumbnail. And all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, and I was like, for what? You have a message, you have a job to do. There are people that need to hear your message. Even if you don't ever get to know who your messages help, you have a calling, you have a responsibility, so do it. And so the analogy that often comes to me is, if there was a fire in a building, would you worry about what the color of the container you had to use to get water was like? Would you worry about if it was blue? I would have preferred it to be red. You stop and think about that. Oh, the bucket is not really clear. The bucket is not really clean, or it's not the right color, or I should probably hurry up and go buy a new bucket first. And then, no, you're not going to think about all of that. That's not going to matter. That's inconsequential. That does not matter. What you're going to be concerned about would be quickly getting water and getting the fire out of the building. That's the urgency that you should have with your responsibilities, with what you need to do. So I have to remind myself of this, is like, when you're trying to wait for everything to be perfect, is that you just trying to stall? Is that just another form of procrastination and hiding? And we don't do that. This is a no hiding zone, and perfectionism prevents you from getting to where you want to get to. And so I want to encourage you today to think back to some of the things you wanted to do. What is it that you wanted to do, but you're waiting for that perfect time? What is it that you wanted to do that you are waiting to be more ready for? I want you to go ahead and just take one step. Consider doing it. Imperfect action is better than inaction. So do it just the way it is. You're going to continue to improve. You're going to continue to get better. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Remember that confidence comes from competence, right? So confidence comes from competence. So the more you're doing stuff, the more competent that you get, the more confidence that you get. If you want to learn to be a great public speaker, you don't become a better public speaker by reading more books, or you read the books and learn the techniques, but then you need to actually go out there and speak, and that's how you get better. So take those imperfect steps. Okay, have a wonderful day.